We'll stand and take refuge. I've unmuted a lot of you. Let's see. Noju, Wandu, and Oche are still muted, but you can unmute yourself. Please repeat after me. Out. I go for to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I cultivate the heart of
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
and realize great goals.
and realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
I will penetrate the teachings
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
And transform this world into Buddha land unimpeded.
And transform this world into Buddha land unimpeded.
Okay. And move us back down to the heart center. I'm going to mute everybody again. Don't take it personally. Because being with everybody unmuted is not pleasant or edifying. So, which is a shame because there are some lovely voices here. So, and again, as usual, it is on page 13 of the Pretty Bound book. It's also in the PDF. So please do chant along, and then we'll go around and check in. So. Namaha Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutara the Bodhisattva of great compassion, from the deep practice of prajna paramita, perceived the emptiness of all five skandhas, and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Sariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. Oh, Sariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind. No realm of sight, no realm of consciousness. No ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance. No old age or death, nor extinction of them. No suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna paramita. Therefore, her mind is free of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance, there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, she reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then, the prajna paramita is the great dharani, the radiant peerless mantra, the utmost supreme mantra, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna paramita. Gate, gate, para, gate, para, samgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, para, gate, para, samgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, para, gate, para, samgate, bodhisvaha. Maha prajna paramita Hridaya Sutra. Okay, so once again, I will unmute all of you, literally and metaphorically. Good morning. Good to see everybody this morning. Just go around and check in and say how we're doing, and then we'll talk more explicitly about the right livelihood guidelines, and then go around one more time. So, Noju, good morning. How are you? I think you're muted.
Okay, I just unmuted.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's I've been doing well. This past week has been pretty calm, actually, and I'm really grateful for that. Yeah, and yeah, just settling into the routine, settling into working online. This new life with quarantine lifted, just being able to be more mobile. Like I'm grateful. I know it's privileged, but it's been pretty quiet and uneventful. And yeah, I'm really happy about that. So,
Yeah, great.
mhm.
See you. And our friend Sunita, it's been a while. How you doing? Good to see
Okay.
you.
I'm kind of numb. I just had the big deadline and my friend's out of chemo. He's got a dozen weeks to live and he's already seeing his spirits and transitioning to death. And it's weird. It's like my best friends are dying. And I went to my goddaughters and celebrated a birth with their little girls. And surreal.
Thank you. Let's see. Wandu with and your cat. And is that Lead Belly? Yeah.
Yes, that's Lead Belly. He's taking a break from screaming at the birds. But, yeah, so he still does not like squirrels, but I don't think he realizes if there wasn't a window between them, they would probably take him down a peg. So, anyhow, I'm doing fine. I have Haley here with me. She's sleeping late, which is per usual on a Sunday morning with her now. I got back to a regular work schedule again since they cut us down to 3 days a week. Now they're back up to 5. So things should be getting back to normal once I get a few more paychecks under my belt. A few more full paychecks. And everything else for me is fine, I guess, except for the relative isolation. But I think I'm handling that fairly well. But that's pretty much all I have.
Let's see, Jogam.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's been a tough
I
week.
was gonna say you're hard to hear. I think there's a mic you might not be speaking into quite because it.
Is that better?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Practice has been okay. It's actually been helpful. This week has been rough. They announced our back to school plans, if you want to call them that. And we are in a state of consternation, I think is easy to use as a word. We feel they're reckless. And it's, as with all these things, I mean, the focus is on, for so many people, is on the self instead of what the effects are going to be for others. It's, am I going to get sick versus am I going to spread? And those of you who know me a little bit personally know that I get paid for my opinions on these things, and I'm completely flabbergasted. We're opting out. We're keeping our son at home, and we're identifying other sort of Confederates in the neighborhood that choose to be equally vigilant. So the distress is around the lack of regard from others, of others. And it presses your boundaries in terms of, our Buddhist admonition to not judge. That's really, really rough. And These are dark times. I think that on multiple levels, these are dark times. And with that rosy thought, I'll pass the baton.
Thanks, Joka. So Yuk, good morning.
Morning. Yeah, I'm doing okay this week. I decided to, with a little bit of a nudge from Nora, over the past many weeks, I've been grinding pretty hard on reading Zen and reading anti-racist stuff and reading therapy stuff and reading and should and not reading but I should be reading. So I decided this week to sort of give myself a little bit of a break and sort of stop pedaling uphill and take my feet off the pedals and just coast a little bit. And that was tremendous. So yeah, I'm just trying to be for a little bit and see how that goes. And it's working. So it lightened me up a little bit. So thank you to Nora for the nudge this week. It helped. And so that's where I am this second. And so it's good to be here with all of you. I'm just going to hang out. Thank you.
Great. Good to see you. And Gakta.
Well, Noara and I, have mastered, doing a lot of stuff online. I've gotten a lot of work done in the last couple of weeks, so that feels good. But the biggest thing going on is letting go of what usually happens in the summer, which is that we travel, we made a great trip to New Hampshire and Maine last year. None of that's happening. And along with that comes not seeing my little babies. My son lives in Vermont, my daughter in Missouri, and we're just not hanging out with them. And that I miss a lot. And that's where I'm at.
Okay, good morning. You're muted, but you're going to unmute because you're really good at Zoom by now. Yeah.
Good morning.
Right.
I'm okay. I really feel Jogam because we're working. I'm not working to return to school, but others are working to have us return to school. I teach high school English as a second language and I'm a department chair in Hoffman Estates. And they are putting together a plan, and I'm just talking to all the people in the department, many of whom or some of whom have risk factors that make it very dangerous for them to return to work, and they don't know if they're going to be supported by the district, and I'm just wrestling. I feel like I have to facilitate others working with students because that's my position, but I don't think we should return to school. I think that as a result of participating in this process, there's a good chance that people will become ill and die, and I don't think that it's worth it. So I've just been wrestling with that. And then also we had our society meetings, just over a week now. And we were sort of gently admonished for seeking teachers who are far away from us, sort of our big teachers with a capital T. So I've really been taking that to heart and looking to my partner and to the Sangha and to and within myself for a teacher rather than sort of these figures that sometimes we put on a pedestal. So.
Yeah.
Noara, can I say something to Oche? And I mean, it's to Oche primarily, but to everybody. You just need to know that, for people like myself and my wife, our heart is breaking for teachers, truly breaking. You all are in utterly impossible situations and positions for the choices that you're having to make. It's a Gordian knot that you're being asked to untangle. And I just want you to know that we just feel very deeply for you and your colleagues, and we just hope that we figured the least we can do is not add fuel to the fire, literally and figuratively. So anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm pretty good. I'm really grateful. Practice is kind of the gift that keeps on giving. And whenever I find myself in a tough spot, the answer is just practice and just coming back to it. And it'll, yeah, I think I'm exploring, it's funny that we're close to the precept ceremony where we're encouraged to kind of really contemplate our name, and that there are all these layers in our names. And my name, of course, means let go, which I thought I knew what that meant, but it's like the gate paragate. It's like let go. No, let go some more. No, you think you let go some more. Like you're still not letting go. And so I'm kind of just trying to let myself let go and really trust and realize that, it's all, it's all, I don't want to say it's all going to be okay, because we're, as you guys have pointed out, the horses of the apocalypse are kind of neighing outside the window, and there's real suffering in all sorts of ways. But that, yeah, so it's not that it's all going to be okay, but I don't know. I'll just wrap this up, because otherwise I'm going to talk too much, but which I usually do. But I just want to, I hit upon, I think last week during the teachers meetings, or the Dharma Guardian meetings, I hit upon the formulation that our practice can lighten the burden of other people. And I'm really, really kind of trying to really make that my practice, right? And really ask myself, how can I, how can we use our practice to lighten? Because I think there are people who are really shouldering some fearsome burdens. And so to really kind of try to see it that way. And I'll just give one example. I have a feeling I'm probably impinging on the Right Livelihood talk, but I'll talk less then. And so this is going to sound silly. This is actually, so if you follow me on Facebook. So the other day I figured out that the YMCA next door actually has swimming. They have a whole system, and you reserve online. You go in a side door, you go straight to the pool. They've got a bin, and you swim for 45 minutes, and then they kick you out. There's a good gap between other people, and you only have one person per lane. It's like super working really well. And so I posted about it on Facebook, because I overpost and overshare, and and the whole be aware of media you consume in social media. I don't care. And a very good friend of mine said, that's a brilliant system. I wish my pool did that. And then she messaged me an hour later, and she said, actually, my pool's been doing it for 3 weeks. I actually looked into it and found out because of your message. I actually looked into it. They hadn't been posting it on Facebook because they don't want to get overrun with people, but they're doing it. And I know she's a real swimmer, swims every day, and she's had shoulder issues. And I said, oh, that's really great. And then she said, I lost my father to COVID in April, and it's actually completely shattered me, and I have not been well. This is a colleague of mine who teaches at University of Washington. She lives in Seattle, so I don't see her often or talk to her often. But she was private messaging me, and she said, and it's just so, and I'm starting to put myself back together, and the fact that I can go swim now is so helpful, right? And so I just thought it was a lovely example of I didn't set out to, I don't know, I'm not taking credit for telling her pool is open, right? But just the way that, to have played a part in sort of just getting her burden. I don't know if this is making any sense whatsoever, and I don't want to sound grandiose about it, but it was just a lovely story about unintended consequences, and just the way that just sticking with our practice and sort of being generous and helpful and and reaching out, or not reaching out. Sometimes that's what's called for, but just how it can, yeah, to focus on how we can help, or even if it's not even intentional, especially when it's not intentional. I don't know if that made any sense, but I just wanted to share that story because I'll be quiet now. But yeah, so we were working with Right Livelihood Guideline number 4, I think, right? Cultivate compassion and loving kindness. And the first one was notice where help is needed and be quick to help. Consider others' perspectives deeply and work for peace at many levels. And I think these are challenging times for all 3 of those.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. So yeah, any thoughts about those, Sunita? I'll just go back in the same order and then we'll circle back.
It's kind of a sore spot. I generally imagine my mind radiating compassion and only bringing up too much self-sacrifice when it's causing me suffering. And I go around this radiant person all the time. And since the COVID happened, I feel I erected a wall, and I avert my eyes when somebody begs on the in traffic. I don't imagine donating to anybody. I'm worried about my employees, my nephew, my loved ones only, and I'm circling a wagon around my radiant compassion and saying it only can go to the edge of the house, and that's it, you know. And I can feel it, and I twinge when people say, okay, we've got to GoFundMe for this or contribute to that. And I just think to myself, no, I got to make sure I keep my business running. I got to make sure, you know, I'm solvent for all these people that depend on me. And it isn't suffering so much. It's just, what the fuck happened? You know, this world has changed me so thoroughly, and I don't feel like I've done anything wrong. I don't suffer for it. I just see this cut off of something that was second nature to me for 20 years. And I know it's not dead. I know I'm a compassionate person. I just look at the form that world has taken, and I've made my adjustment, and it's beguiling.
Thanks, Anita. No, Ju.
Yeah, this was a really interesting one for me. Like the beginning, the first part, notice where help is needed and be quick to help. I was thinking about that a lot this week, and what came up for me is actually I notice it's really hard for me to ask for help. Like I'm way more comfortable giving help and offering help than I am receiving help. So even when I'm in need or I really need support, it's really hard for me to ask, you know? And so it sounds kind of cliche, but it's true, right? You cannot pour from an empty cup. And I think that's kind of what Sunita was saying. Like, if you're depleted, you can't keep pouring from an empty cup because it just makes you, I think, for me at least, more resentful. And I have a really hard time saying no if somebody asks me for help. So even if I don't have the time or I feel really depleted in some way, I still feel this pressure to help and to say no, or to say yes. I can't say no. And so for me, this week has really been about balance. Like, there's this woman, she's a little bit older and she's disabled. And she came into Cusco, and she's a good friend. And she needed help like getting supplies, grocery shopping, like basic things. And it was really a pleasure, you know, like I like spending time with her. I like being able to do something and to feel useful. And she's a good friend. And so that didn't feel like an imposition. But there are other times this week when people, I almost resent it, right? Because I feel like they're asking and asking and asking and demanding. So I spent a lot of time thinking about that. Why is it so hard for me to ask for help? And how do I find balance in that? Yeah. So that's been my experience.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Wandu, any thoughts?
Yeah, but I think with that verse, I mean, I take a little bit more of, I mean, I'm the type of person that I tend to always, if I'm asked, I pretty much always do what I can. You know, if I'm asked for help, I'm always there. But I think my hardest part in terms of the verse is in recognizing where help is needed when it's not asked for.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the hardest part of that for me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty much what struck me when I heard it.
Nice. Thanks.
Although right now I'm getting told what somebody needs, you know.
Yeah, cats aren't afraid of helping you notice where help is needed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, the squirrels have been out here just before it started to pour down. So he was having a little bit of a self-control problem. So, but he seems to be wanting comfort right now.
Jogum.
I think for me, this is really where the number 4, it's where the rubber really meets the road. Because so many times our livelihood is so defined by and focused, like Sunita was saying, and I think he's right. It's only natural, especially in times like this, to, I think, as he said, circle the wagons. And even when it's not times like this, it's kind of a sort of a normal Western culture default setting. And this is kind of almost in some ways the first one to go out the window when we are in not just difficult global times like this, but when we're personally going through a difficult time. I just feel like this particular guideline really underscores the real challenge that is our chosen path. You know, in some regards, this should almost be the first guideline or the last guideline, you know, one or the other, because, you know, 6 guidelines doesn't mean 6 days. Like they say in 12-step programs, you don't do 12 steps in 12 days. It's more like 12 years. But and this also is something I'm particularly struggling with right now, as I mentioned in my sort of readout. You know, struggling with judgment, lack of patience, lack of compassion, lack of how do we say it? Consider other perspectives deeply, when that's really, really hard when you categorically feel that someone else's perspective is unfounded, uninformed, and deeply ignorant, which is kind of not what we're the path we're supposed to be taking. So this is a hard one. I'm not going to lie to you. I think it's spot on. But I think, speaking just for myself, this is something that, and it's also, frankly, the thing that attracted me most to the Buddhist path was not just compassion and loving kindness for self, but in so doing, it necessitates you can't help but express that to others, and that deep interconnectedness, which I always end up focusing on. So it's just, yeah, this one in an odd way, it's just sort of a sore spot for me right now, in a good way. And Noara, what you said, I think is really important on how do we, I can't remember exactly how you said it, but how, what can we do to lighten the burden? And even if it's not perfect, even if it's just a little bit, what can we do to make that happen? And, Jogam, it's bird's eye view. And so got to see the big picture. And my training and my background and what I do as livelihood, a lot of it's big picture, but a lot of it's little picture too. It's both. And so it's a tough balance. So I've said enough.
Yay. And I see we have a new member of the Pa family who just joined us.
Say,
There she is.
Hey, hon.
So Yoke.
I don't know what I've got.
Yeah,
I think
fine.
the one like functionally, I can consider that is easiest for me to grasp onto and work with is consider other perspectives deeply. Even though what Jogam said is totally true, it's very, very hard to do, but it's something that I can sort of at least put some effort out into. And for me, I'm just, what I'm even though I'm coasting right now and I've got my feet off the pedals of the bike, I'm, the thing that I'm working on sort of prevailing in my life is self-compassion. So that's going to be the place which in the future I think can launch and sort of emanate some of this other stuff. But until I'm able to sort of work with the inner critic and this guy that's in there, it's been in there for a long time, this voice, it's a challenge for me. So I'm kind of trying to work with both at the same time. So those are the things that resonate for me. And then I'm sitting here in the basement and I'm looking, there's a window on the other side of this monitor and the skies are darkening and the rain is coming down. So kind of fits with the vibe. But I'm looking forward to doing this next week. Don't know mind, because that's one I've got good. Yeah.
Great. Like that?
Well, what comes up for me is this guideline says be quick to help. But because of, training I've had, not in Buddhism, but, in jobs I've had and everything else, I mishear that a lot as be quick to fix it. So what I struggle with is the difference between helping and fixing. Because, so if there's a problem, I have to adjust. I have to accept that maybe I can help but can't fix it. So, and that even relates to this Buddhist name that Stinker Sunim gave me, which is Gakta, which means helping others wake up. So that means helping. It doesn't mean fixing people, So this is a thing that swirls around, this kind of precept for me. And it's particularly difficult given all the unfixable problems that we're living with. Right. And to just sit with the suffering that's going on and, alleviate that when I can. No, not alleviate it, help people get through it.
There you go.
Right. See, it slipped right in.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what comes up for me.
Yeah,
Right.
and I'm thinking about what Moja said about not correcting but connecting,
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Which that's like, ooh, God. Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
I think I'm going to skip from now, but I really appreciate listening to everyone's wisdom. Thank you.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Except for Sunita, he's always been full of it.
Oh, you guys, what a great combo. That's right. Yeah, at the risk of being, sometimes I do feel, and especially when Oche exercises restraint, I feel even more like one of those dogs that has to pee on every single tree that it walks by. And I'm sorry about that. I know it's a fault.
Ew.
You know,
I love that image, though. That's awesome.
But yeah, so let me just take a shot at a couple fire hydrants that are sitting here. They're irresistible. It's my nature. I'm like a Great Dane kind of thing. But I want to come back. I love the notice where help is needed as being like a really as important as the quick to help. And I think that's actually where even consider others' perspectives deeply and this one sort of intersect, which is, you know, it looks like help to you might not be what the person needs. And so it's a very deep invitation to practice. It's a challenge, right? But I want to come back to what Dogon was saying, because while you were talking, I was thinking, and this no judgment thing, and I was thinking again, and I've used this in Dharma talks before, but I'll mention it again, is there was this woman, this Colombian woman who really played a key role in getting the Paris Climate Accord signed. May it rest in peace, but she did. And I read a profile of her, and she said, look, the stakes are too big for me to get to kind of get punctilious about the wording, right? She said, I know if I walk into the room and I say petrol, the Saudis are going to walk out. So when I'm in a room with the Saudis, I don't use that word, right? And so it's the skillful means. It's like, okay, we need to get here, right? And it's so important that we get here that all, you know, we shouldn't sort of have, so it's not about not judging and not saying like, oh, well, all ends are equally okay, right? I think there's this kind of like, no, we need to get here. And the way that we get here often is to consider other people's perspectives deeply, right? Like, so it's sort of like, what are the burdens? And I know there's been a lot of kind of stuff about this, you know, with Trump voters, but like, what are the burdens, right, that they're all carrying that leave them no real estate to, you know, who knows, right? But the effort to sort of get in there and consider the perspectives deeply, not as an end in itself, but towards kind of the goal of not having people getting sick and dying, right? Of people wearing masks. Like, we have a very kind of clear goal and the not harming goal. And I think there are ways in which, you know, I'm just coming to terms again, gate, paragate. It just seems like the more you do, the more you realize there is to do, of the way in which, you know, consider others' perspectives deeply, that there are perspectives in this country that don't get considered as deeply, right? So we are in a rush to think about, oh, how does that poor Trump voter feel, but not how does that, you know, Black student in an underfunded school feel, like, what about their perspective, and how much weight, so to be aware of how much weight we're giving perspectives. There are perspectives that might be easier for us to consider deeply than others, and trying to be aware of where that happens. So yeah, this is really the guideline that I kind of just come back to all the time, and maybe too much, in the sense of, because I think it's also perfectly acceptable for the notice where help is needed for that answer to be your employees or yourself, right? As Noju and Sunita said, right? Like that's where help is needed right now. It's okay. It's not like, oh my God, crucify me, I'm a terrible Buddhist because I'm taking care of this thing that's right in front of me. That's practice too, right? And to resist the urge. I don't know. I don't know if any of this is making sense. I'm just going to open up the floor to comments or questions, I will stop talking. I don't think, yeah. I'm out of fire hydrants. Yeah.
It's great being one of your fire hydrants.
Yeah, do you like that, Sunita? I will. You're my special fire hydrant.
You know, I'd like to say something. When I was listening to Noara talk, considering other perspectives deeply, I was listening to this podcast this week, and it was called "The Case for Reparations." So it was this African
Ta-Nehisi
American.
Coates.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it was such
He's
a
amazing.
beautiful. It was such a beautiful interview, and she talked a lot, right? Just basic history, right, of what happened, and explaining the case for reparations. And she was so well spoken. She was so everything. Like it to me, it was so persuasive and so clear. And it seemed so optimistic to me, right? That she just said, if I lay it out so clearly without any emotion, if I just am logical and rational and I have all of my points clearly, then I can persuade people, I can convince people. And it just seemed to me so very heartbreakingly optimistic that, like, in this, people who are, in my view, like really racist and really on the other side, that reason, if I can just make them understand my perspective, I can change them. You know what I mean? So, like, that's been on my mind a lot too. Like, considering someone else's perspective and really thinking that, like, we can all meet and understand each other. I think, like, there has to be, I don't know if that makes sense, but there has to be a certain kind of willingness to actually recognize the possibility that you could be wrong, you know, that's kind of inherent in that. So that really struck me when I was listening to her speak. Yeah.
Humility.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you're saying. Yeah. I'm loving Haley's shirt. Any other thoughts or comments or fire hydrants or bushes or? And what I love, I'm reading the Avatamsaka Sutra, which is reading seems like not the right verb to use because it's like you kind of just take a bath in it for a little while and then jump out. But Buddhism is shameless actually about the means that it uses. Like it's just basically telling you, like, there's an infinite amount of people. There's bajillions of trillions of different people. They're all in different places. They all have different gifts. They all have different perspectives, and you adjust, right? That's part of it too. It's just how can they hear the Dharma, right? And once again, it's a little bit like the climate change issue. Like hearing the Dharma is so important, right? So what do you need to do for each person to manage to, get it to be heard, right? Because once that spark is lit, then you've got another kind of nuclear plant online that can just churn out. That's maybe not a great image, but yeah.
For me, I think that's important is everyone is the Dharma. Because if you know, the immediate Dharma that we have on Cornelia Street, that if somebody were to, I don't know, engage or say or do something that was either offensive or obnoxious, I wouldn't get worked up about it. I would just calmly stand there and listen and, you know, say, well, what do you mean by that? Or why do you feel that way? Or, you know what I mean? And just a very, you know, in a non cliche use of the word, try to be Zen about it. And trying to export that outside the walls of, you know, Cornelia. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? And it's pretty easy to be Zen inside the Buddha Hall. Yeah.
Mostly just hot, actually.
That's good.
It's hot.
It's hot. It's from Chicago.
I guess I want to say that I feel the power of Sangha right now. We've got this mushy religion we're dancing around, and it doesn't have dogma, and nobody's yelling at me to feel bad about my sins or something direct. We're talking about compassion and not fixing, helping, and choosing the right time, and it's a big blur and it's ambiguous. And I just feel so buoyant now because all those lack of faith feelings I had all week just melted. I know that this is our human condition and it's not black and white, and it's got invitations to suffer around every corner. And all we can do is to send a lot of RSVPs saying, no, I don't want to suffer, can't be there, have a nice day, good luck, have a nice party, you do your thing. And yes, help people, and not, my thing is I try to fix everything, absolutely everything. And it's stupid to have that perspective as if it's smart or the right thing to be, because I can't fix everything, obviously. I just marvel that the entire society is now a Buddhist, in that the temporary is emphasized. The veil of illusion is gone. No one can say what tomorrow is, and when they do, somebody calls them out. Boom, we're all Buddhists. What happened? And it's an uneasy feeling. And hello, that's your life. That's your world. That's more realistic than the one where you thought about your 2-week vacation plan for 3 weeks. So yeah, the Great Livelihood Guidelines are still relevant. You're welcome.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. And Oche, I love you so thoroughly.
Any? Nobody's gonna put a cherry on the Sunita Sunday. That's perfect the way it is.
Who wants to follow that?
Yeah.
Gee. I guess I'll take a bath in some used water.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
All right, then so for next week, I hope to see everybody here again. But if not, that's fine. We'll hopefully get an e-blast out this week and just remind everybody. I think there's just so many links floating around, but we'll just remind people what we're doing. But it's really great. Yeah.
What's the next guideline?
The next guideline is number 5, which is discover wisdom. And the 3 parts of it are Soyok's favorite, cultivate, don't know mind. Find connections between Buddhist teachings and your life, right? So that goes to what Oche was saying about Doan reminding us that our teachers are right here, right here, right now, not over there. And then the last one is be open to what arises in every moment. Which again is kind of a tall order when you're feeling a little bruised and wounded and battered and scared and but I think even just noticing, well, I'm peeing on the fire hydrant again, but even just noticing what prevents us from being open in each moment is actually part of working with that guideline, if that makes sense. It's just kind of taking stock and saying, wow, I'm really beat up right here, and this is preventing me from being as open as I could be. I think we all have those spots. So anyway,
So everyone have that mastered by next Sunday.
that's right. I was just going to say, that's exactly why I said that, because I don't want this to be like, here's Mount Everest, go climb it and take a picture at the summit. Like, I don't think that's at all the intention behind the guidelines. It's like the precepts where it's like, oh, how many times did you break it this week? Or our practice reports, like, oh, here's what I should have done, and here's my messy life. And how do we just kind of take stock and notice ideal and real, and where do I fall down? That's actually wisdom, is figuring out where our bruises and our broken bones that didn't quite heal properly. I realize that when I'm inflamed by certain things, it's like, oh, because that's that script from when I was 10 years old, and that it just sounds a lot like this, and so I just zoom right into out of the moment. So anyway, it's all wisdom, it's all good, it's all knowledge. So that your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to work with that for next week. And we'll do the 4 great vows, and we'll see everybody next week. It's so great to see everybody. Thank you all so much for being here and for your wisdom and your practice. And we'll muddle through another 7 days. So all beings, one body. I vow to liberate blind passions, one root. I vow to attain. Dharma gates, one mind. I vow to penetrate the great way of Buddha. I vow to realize. All right.
It's base camp.
Peace out.
Hang in there.
Peace out. Love you guys.
Love you.
Love you.
It's great to see you, all of you.
Yeah, I love you.
Love, love, love.